Good afternoon, I'm Alan Unell, and this series of videos is Healthcare Advocacy, where we address problems in the healthcare system and then take actions to make a better system for all of us. We have a lot of interesting news and cancer research today, as well as some shenanigans in the government. But before we get to that, down below in the YouTube description box, you'll find a link to the Healthcare Advocacy newsletter that is the text for today's video. You can go there, sign up for free, get it delivered to your inbox almost every day. It has lots of good references, background material, all the studies that I talk about, all the medical journal reports, all that stuff is in there together with the actions that we take. So let's get started. The first piece I want to talk about has to do with breast cancer research. This one is actually really big news. Despite significant therapeutic advances, breast cancer remains a leading cause of cancer-related death in women. Treatment typically involves surgery and follow-up hormone therapy, but late effects of these treatments, including osteoporosis, sexual dysfunction, and you can even get blood clots from all of this. It's very dangerous. Researchers have created a new treatment that eliminated small breast tumors and significantly shrunk large tumors in mice in a single dose without problematic side effects. The results were published by the American Chemical Society, and there's a link to it in the newsletter. Most breast cancers are estrogen receptor positive, ER+, and treatment typically involves several years of hormone therapy. These types of treatments still have side effects that diminish the quality of life and can leave people at risk for cancer recurrence and treatment resistance, that's what killed my sister. Anyway, here is a link to their previous study. It's in the newsletter. You can go and read it. The researchers further evaluated one derivative that they came across. I'll give you the nickname. It's ERSOTFPY. They found that it effectively killed multiple human ER+ breast cancer cell lines in cultures. That is, you're just testing against cells. It was well tolerated with no obvious deleterious side effects in multiple species. They did it in mice, rats, and beagles. And it shrank transplanted human breast tumors of various genetic backgrounds in the mice. So this should work for a wide range of people. This one is really big. Okay, let's talk about dementia. There are common drugs linked to a lower risk of dementia. This study was led by researchers from the universities of Cambridge and Exeter in England. Excuse me, and it identified several drugs already licensed and in use that have the potential to be repurposed to treat dementia. In total, the team examined 14 studies that used large clinical data sets and medical records, capturing data from more than, get this, 130 million individuals and 1 million dementia cases. Although they found a lack of consistency between studies in identifying individual drugs that attack the risk of dementia, they identified several drug classes associated with altered risk, up and down. One unexpected finding was that there was an association between antibiotics, antivirals, and vaccines and a reduced risk of dementia. This finding supports a hypothesis that common dementias may be triggered by viral or bacterial infections, and supports recent interest in vaccines such as the BCG vaccine that's used for tuberculosis and its decreased risk of dementia. Now, anti-inflammatory drugs such as ibuprofen were also found to be associated with reduced risk. Inflammation is increasingly being seen to be a significant contributor to a wide range of diseases, and its role in dementia is supported by the fact that some genes that increase the risk of dementia are part of the inflammatory pathway. The team found conflicting evidence, so up and down, for several classes of drugs, with some blood pressure medications and antidepressants, and to a lesser extent diabetes medications, associated with a decreased risk of dementia and others with an increased risk. One of the lead researchers commented on this. She said, Because a particular drug is associated with an altered risk of dementia, it doesn't necessarily mean that it causes or helps in dementia. We know that diabetes increases your risk of dementia, for example, so anyone on medication to manage glucose levels is at a higher risk of dementia, but that doesn't mean that the drug you're taking is responsible for increasing the risk. You are already at high risk. Now, there is a difference. You have to say this over and over again. There's a difference between correlation and causation. And if you want examples, shoot me a comment or send me an email and I'll send you some. I want to talk now about Trump eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion with respect to healthcare, because healthcare will suffer for this. An effort by the Trump administration to pull down FDA, Food and Drug Administration website pages focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, they've done that, has ensnared many pages focused on ensuring that clinical trials used to test drugs and medical devices include people of different ethnic and economic backgrounds. The purging of these pages provides a window into the ways in which the well-established opposition of President Trump and his aides to DEI initiatives is having far-reaching effects just days after they took office. While many DEI initiatives focus on hiring practices and communications in ways the administration disdains, efforts to diversify clinical trials have been widely seen as important scientifically. That is, to test experimental products on various populations who would ultimately derive benefit or incur risk. The deletion of references to DEI issues appears to be playing out across government sites. STAT is a medical news reporting service. I have a link to them. They identified web pages run by key health agencies, including the National Cancer Institute, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, that previously included diversity and equity goals in their mission statements, but now do not. The National Institute of Health has taken down pages for Sexual and Gender Minority Research Office, and the National Institute of Health Sexual and Gender Minority Health Scientific Research Group, as well as the Office of Research on Women's Health, Sex and Gender landing page. The Trump administration even shut down the White House's Spanish language page. Aren't they charmers? But the scrubbing of clinical trial-related pages is notable because of how it could affect the ways researchers inside and out of the government, both, and companies, test drugs and medical devices. Under the Biden administration, the FDA had urged industry to enroll more people of color and women in trials and released some draft guidance in June of 2024 about how it should do so. It is unclear whether that guidance will ever be finalized or whether the web page removals mean the Trump administration intends to abandon efforts to diversify clinical trials. Now, scientists have focused on the issue of diversity in clinical studies, both because lacking a diverse population can lead to skepticism from patients who could be helped by medicines, and because some drugs and treatments really do work differently in people of different backgrounds. In fact, you don't have to look far because men and women present differently in heart attack. And for a long time, women were not treated effectively because they didn't present with the symptoms that men had. Just an example. Anyway, actually removing the data sites without thinking about the consequences is something, okay, those of you that studied mythology, you should be thinking Epimetheus. And if you don't know what that is or who he was, send me an email, I'll tell you. Or go to the newsletter, there's a link to the Wikipedia page for him. Okay, let's take an action. Let's demand that the government restore medical research and related data for racially and ethnically diverse populations, as well as data that incorporates the effects on women. You can send a message to the White House and Congress, and I have a link to how to get to them in the YouTube description box, or my favorite way, use your cell phone, and all you have to do is send a text message to 50409. It is SIGN, SIGN, space, PXAXKC. SIGN, PXAXKC. PXAXKC to 50409. I'll read you the message in a minute, but I want you to know if it's the first time you're doing it, they're going to ask you for your name, address, phone number, and email to make sure that they correctly identify your elected representatives. Anyway, here's the email you'll be sending. I am saddened to see that so many websites related to health have been removed. I want you to know that symptoms and treatments for a wide variety of medical conditions do not present and cannot be treated the same way for men, women, and for different racial and ethnic groups. Please restore these sites so that researchers and doctors can have the latest information available to provide the best care possible for all of their patients. Thank you. That's what I've got for you today. Down below, you can like, share, subscribe, all of those things. Subscribe to the Healthcare Advocacy newsletter. You can also send me a comment here or at healthcareadvocacy1, all one word, @gmail.com. Have a good evening.